now you all know this call is being recorded. And my name is Holly Morello. I'm the TDM program manager at OmniRide. And I'll just queue up the morning and then turn it over to Joe Stainsby, OmniRide's Chief Development Officer, to say a few things. And then first person up, we have Seth Apoku-Yaboa, who is the development manager at Wellington Development. And he's going to be speaking this morning on balancing affordable housing and transportation. And then after that, we have Christina Wynn, who is the executive director at Prince William County Department of Economic Development and Tourism. And she is going to be speaking on the top 10 things you should know about economic development in Prince William County. So with that, I'll turn it over to Joe to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Holly. All right, good morning, everyone. Happy holiday season. I hope that everybody's looking forward to the holidays or having a good holidays and staying away from all the nasty bugs out there. Very good morning to everyone, and I want to welcome you to our Mobility Council here, our Employer Council. I just put a link in the chat, which goes to our Mobility Council's website, or portion of our website. And just to give everyone a bit of context, we have 3 Mobility Councils. We have a Vanpool Council, an Employer Council, and a Hispanic Council. They form our kind of our 3-legged stool for community outreach. So a number of years ago, we did our strategic plan, and it became abundantly apparent that we were really in too much of kind of a top-down dictatorial type agency in terms of telling the community what kind of service we thought that they needed, right? So we've really endeavored to try and pivot from that, doing a lot more community outreach, and also setting up these 3 councils, which provide each of them 2 opportunities a year for us to meet with regional stakeholders, to have members of the community on, to listen to stuff that we have to say, to get feedback on our proposals, and even more importantly than that, like today, to hear from fabulous people like Seth and Christina. You know, we get a lot of opportunities to speak to our ridership base, and potentially other folks do not. So anytime that we can put together a mobility council where nobody at OmniRide is specifically on the agenda, that makes me happy, right? So I want to thank Seth and Christina for agreeing to participate today, and everybody for willing to take time out of their, no doubt, extremely hectic pre-holiday schedule to be part of this. So thank you very much, and everyone enjoy. That's it for me, Holly.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Seth, you are free to share your screen when you're ready.
All right, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you too.
Okay, awesome, perfect. So again, thank you again for the opportunity to do this today. In the summer of 2013, OmniRide was part of the transportation network that I utilized to get to the Hill for my internship. I would either take OmniRide or Slug to the Pentagon Metro Station, and then Metro to the Capitol Hill Station, and then the same thing back. So it's cool being able to be here today. So I wanted to walk through what exactly it is that we do as affordable housing developers, and then how transportation plays a role in that for us as operators and our residents that live in our community. So I'm a development manager with Wellington Development Partners, and I'm responsible for all aspects of the development cycle for the deals that we have in our pipeline. So we're a firm that uses low-income housing tax credits to build income-restricted apartments for individuals and families at or under 60% of the area median income. And we can charge no more than 30% of their income as rent, because paying 30% or lower towards rent or mortgage is defined as having affordable housing. So up to $62,000 for an individual is under 60% AMI, and then up to $90,000 for a family of 4 is under that 60% area median income number. And this is something that I would have qualified for when I graduated from William & Mary back in 2016. And individuals, based on their salaries that would qualify for the type of housing that we build, would include teachers, public servants, first responders, people working in retail or a grocery store. As a firm, we're focused primarily on opportunities in the suburbs, specifically in Virginia and Maryland. We have a pipeline of 10 deals, and that includes opportunities in Fairfax County, Loudoun County, Montgomery County, Maryland, as well as Prince William County, Virginia. And then with the deals that we have in Virginia, we partner with a nonprofit to help to deliver supportive services necessary to provide success for our residents. So low-income housing tax credits are the largest part of the capital stack for us as affordable housing developers. Low-income housing tax credits are a federal tax incentive that aims to solve the housing crisis by increasing participation of private investors. So how it works is that the federal treasury will allocate low-income housing tax credits to states based on population, and then the state's allocating agency, in the case of Virginia, it'll be Virginia Housing. They break up that allocation into different pools. So as a developer doing deals in Northern Virginia, we compete in the Northern Virginia and new construction pool. So affordable housing developers would apply for and receive low-income housing tax credits in exchange for agreeing to rent properties to tenants at certain income and rent levels, which is 60% or lower of the area median income, and then only up to 30% of their income. Virginia Housing allocates credits on a competitive basis to projects based on set criteria in the qualified allocation plan, which is the rule book that governs what we need to provide in our housing in terms of exterior, interior finishes, unit sizes, unit features, and then services for our tenants. So developers would submit competitive applications periodically, usually once a year, and there's pretty significant competition, especially in the Northern Virginia area. Developers ourselves have no need for the low-income housing tax credit subsidy. We need money to finance our deals. So we will sell those credits to private investors in exchange for the money that we need to make the capital stack work. The private investors incentivized to invest in return for the receipt of tax credits and the tax losses over a 10-year period. And banks represent about 85% of the investors because they have the requirements of the Community Reinvestment Act. And low-income housing tax credit has been probably the most successful housing incentive program in our country's history. It supported the new construction and rehabilitation of over 2 million units across the U.S. So there's a stigma tied to affordable housing where people view it as dilapidated, poorly maintained, just very monotonous and ugly, frankly. I think people would say that. But the low-income housing tax program and affordable housing today is not what we've seen in the past in terms of these Cabrini Green type developments where you're like cramming people into one place. In order to win an allocation of low-income housing tax credits, we have to develop affordable apartment communities that are indistinguishable from market rate developments in terms of the exterior and interior finishes. And oftentimes the standards imposed by our allocating agency, Virginia Housing, is often more restrictive than localities' requirements, right? Like there's an incentive to use brick, fiber cement siding, green energy standards, having beautiful open space within the building, just a lot of nice features that make for a really nice product today. This is a deal that we did in the District of Columbia. It's about a 79-unit senior development, and you can see the use of brick, a lot of windows, a lot of natural light coming in there, and it's really a true home for the community. So through the low-income housing tax credit program, we're incentivized to support special populations. And the example project that I'll reference later on in the presentation incorporates all these different aspects. And again, this all ties back to what the state allocating agency, Virginia Housing, encourages in the qualified allocation plan, our rule book, in order to receive the financing that we need to develop these buildings. Some other things that are encouraged too is making sure that we're not too far from a bus stop or a transit line. And if we are, having some sort of shuttle system would be incentivized, as well as having free Wi-Fi, having telemedicine services, and just wraparound programming needed to support the success of residents, which is why, again, we have a nonprofit partner to help us in the delivery of these services for our residents. So the example deal that I have here is Loudoun View Senior Residencies. It's part of a larger master development in Sterling, Virginia, along Route 7, where you see my mouse cursor right now, that's our 98-unit senior development building. And anyone in there is making 60% or lower of the area median income. And then you had Ryan Homes that did condo flats and then townhomes. So this property here met all the affordable requirements for the entire site at a lower AMI level, as well as providing more units than would have been required by the ADU ordinance. And then we're not too far from retail, where there's a Target, movie theater, restaurants here. You have a Harris Teeter, some more restaurants and other community amenities here. And there's a church and Costco over here. And the nice thing too is that there was a walking trail that was made, so it allows like our property manager and residents to be able to make walking field trips as a group to Harris Teeter for whatever they may need. And again, this goes back to the design point that I had about affordable housing, where again, I think people had a perception about what it looked like back in the day. But if we were building something like that, it wouldn't have been part of the master community, just given what these market rate products were built to. And again, if you see my mouse cursor, this is our apartment community here. And you can see the exterior finishes right there. And again, the benefits of this partnership that we had with partnering with the master developer is that as affordable housing developers, since we can only charge so much rent and our capital stack is already stressed, we wouldn't be able to have community amenities like this pool that we have here. So our residents have just as equal access to the pool as any of the other individuals, whether it be renters or residents living in this market rate development. And we have a golf cart to help transport some of our residents up to the pool that may have some mobility issues. And again, just seeing more of the exterior of the building. And we delivered this one beginning of this year. So our preference when we're looking for sites that would work well for development is looking for something along a major bus line. And that's not always possible just given the cost of land, but it's always our top choice. We believe that residents in the larger community benefit from housing near transit, be it OmniRide or VRE in Prince William County or the city of Manassas. And there is a tangible benefit for our residents just being close to those resources. And if we're not on that line, then we just want to be walking distance of that too. And I've had the benefit of evaluating sites in Prince William County where OmniRide is within walking distance, just given the extensive network that you guys have. But if we don't have that option of being near one of those major bus lines, then our goal is to find a way to connect our residents to those services. And that's really important for the elderly population because not everyone's going to have a car. So it's important for us to budget for transit, especially for our senior residents. Another option that we have is partnering with county services or other nonprofits to help with these costs for residents. And the benefits of OmniRide too, as I evaluate some sites in the city of Manassas, is the micro transit program that you guys have running in the city of Manassas, and I believe also in Dumfries too. So it's another way to develop connections to help folks get around that area. And then again, in terms of the elderly, we're proactively thinking about like changes with their mobility, memory, walking apparatuses. So we need to provide solutions. And again, the housing that we're providing is either income restricted for non-seniors or income restricted for seniors, and it's independent living, not assisted living or anything like that. So how we went about the solution at Loudoun View Senior Residencies was a combination of providing them shuttles to connect them with these bus lines, major transit lines, as well as bringing services to them. Just because for some of our residents, there could be a panic that sets in where you can't drive to the doctor or get your refill. So you want to make sure you have all those things accounted for. And we'll discuss in more detail on the next slide. And there are different ways to skin the cat when it comes to that. Seneca Creek is a senior development that we just delivered, I think earlier this week, yesterday. And that's our first deal in Montgomery County, Maryland. And the locality there has a housing commission that's talking about like affordable housing and seniors. And for them, they understand that like shuttles and vans have to be a part of the equation to make sure that we're connecting our seniors to bus lines, to the community and other resources that they may need if they're not driving or have mobility issues. So for that project, we'll have like on-demand and scheduled shuttles for our seniors to connect them with the community. And then one of the partners at our firm was a pro bono developer at Chesterbrook Senior Residencies, and that's an affordable assisted living facility site in McLean, in Fairfax, Virginia. And they had different ways to go about it too that incorporated budgeting within their operations, having money for shuttles and vans to connect people to transit, as well as having volunteers provide free Uber rides, you know, on a certain weekend. So residents knew that they had that option if they needed to get anywhere and get stuff done. So just transportation is a very critical infrastructure just for our residents and also for us in terms of being attractive to tenants and proactively solving for issues that we know are going to come up. So at our Loudoun View Senior Residency site, it's mostly single households and maybe 20 couples. So it's really either on them or for us to deliver anything that they may need. So it's important for us to have this event and programming because it removes that uncertainty. If they know that, hey, if I need a refill, I know that like on X date, we'll bring these services to them. Or if they're getting a toothache, they know that like, okay, there's a semi-annual event, you know, tied to having a dentist actually come here and see residents regardless of their insurance status. So we're just proactively thinking about different ways to address needs before they come up based on what we've seen at other properties that we may own or like from other partners that are in this space. And a point that I heard from one of our property managers too is that like if a resident doesn't have a car, then our building is their life, right? Which is why it's important to make sure we're providing these services and programming. Because if they're going to socialize anywhere, build community anywhere, it's going to be at Loudoun View senior residencies. So for a lot of these different events that we have going on, it meant partnering with local community institutions. Like we partner with Inova to have on-site doctors. And had residents seen by doctors and nurses for physical checkups and have lab work done and whatnot. Yeah, and again, like what we've done in Loudoun County would be replicated in Prince William County and partnering with our surrounding community, including OmniRide. I've already met with Joe and Perrin early in the year, just trying to like understand OmniRide, the synergies that are available. And one point that came up was about us, if we go through a rezoning, is like proffering like a bus shelter, right? That way we have something on site for residents to like automatically connect them with the infrastructure that exists because of OmniRide. And again, all of this is a feedback loop that we have with our residents too, right? Or it's kind of seeing what they like, what they dislike. So we're constantly meeting their needs and applying those lessons to other developments that we're pursuing across the DMV region. And transportation is a big piece of that, especially if you have a car or you don't have a car and you want to limit your footprint and whatnot. And the prices of cars like are getting more expensive too, where it is hard to find a starter car under $20,000. So it's important for us as affordable housing developers to be proactively thinking about needs for our residents and making sure that we're providing them the best quality of life and being able to tap into resources that already exist in Prince William County that could be utilized at our project. So, yeah, thank you again for providing me the opportunity to hear more about what we do and how what OmniRide does ties into all of that.
If you're talking, Holly, you're muted.
Okay, beautiful. Seth, thank you so much. And are you going to be able to stay till the end, or would you like to take some questions now if there are any?
I'll be here to the end.
Beautiful. Okay, then I'm going to share my screen and bring up Christina's presentation. Okay. Can you all see that?
Yeah, I think you have to click on the presentation button at the bottom so that you're not seeing the next slide. It's the one with the screen. Yeah, that one. I think it's that one. Oh, no, it was the other one. Nope, back.
This one.
Nope.
No, the one next to that one.
Nope, the other way.
Oh, God.
You're missing
Sorry,
it. It's
guys.
the middle one, the middle one, the middle one.
This one.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's not doing it, right? I don't see it.
Oh,
Let me
well.
try stop sharing and then I'll do it again.
Have you got two screens connected? Because it might have something to do with that.
Maybe.
Because I think it tends to default to that mode, presenter mode, when you've got two screens connected.
Let me try that again. All right, I hate to say it, but I think this might be the best we can do. Let's see what happens if okay, there we go. I'm going to stop right there.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody. And I wanted just to take a few seconds. I have a presentation that's the 10 things that you should know about Prince William County. I think as the county continues to evolved from a bedroom community to a more robust community with, commercial development. There's just a lot of people don't really, residents know like everything that we have to offer. So, Holly, you can kind of go to the third slide. And so the first and most important thing is, every community from an economic development perspective. And for those of you who don't know, like economic development is generally hosted in either a government agency or sometimes it is a public-private partnership. Here in Prince William County, we are a government agency, but we're in charge of really generating capital investment and creating new jobs in the community, because that tax investment or that tax revenue that is generated goes directly back into Prince William County. So for us, we have a school sharing agreement. So 57% of our tax base goes directly back into our school system. So for every commercial project that happens that generates real estate taxes and property taxes and so forth, all of that tax revenue generated, 57% of it goes back to our schools to help really generate the workforce of tomorrow. So it's super important. But as every community, across the nation globally is marketing their place is the best place to do business, every community can generally say they are a great place to live and work and play, but only those communities that can distinguish what's different about them, what is special, are the ones that really find traction and success. And so the first thing that we always like to talk about in Prince William County that really makes us stand apart from our competitors is that we are the most diverse community in Virginia and the 10th in the nation. And we see this as a competitive advantage in being able to not only attract a very robust workforce, but attract employers to our community. Next slide, Holly. The next thing, there's obviously been a lot of talk if you've been reading the paper, but we are the second largest data center market in Northern Virginia. Currently, we have about almost 8 million square feet of data centers that are existing, and about 42 buildings. There's a couple million square feet that are under development. Either they're going through a development review process or under construction. To put that in context, the #1 market in the world is Loudoun County. They have, I believe now, over 100 data centers and more than 25 million square feet of data centers. The other thing that I want to make point is that Prince William County is not trying to be Loudoun County. We do not want to be the #1 data center community. We're fine where we're at. And so we're, while it is a very robust part of our economy, and it generates significant revenue, our emphasis is on economic diversification. So we want to make sure that we're attracting other industries that I'm going to talk about here in a second. So the next slide. So it goes into that diversification goes into a resilient economy. So during the pandemic, we had where other communities were struggling, and even now today, because the office market is struggling is kind of a way to minimize it, but they're having a really hard time in urban areas, DC, Arlington, New York, Boston, because of the hybrid workforce. Prince William County did not experience that. And so we were very resilient because of our diversification. And so we were able to really maintain our economy. We were able to get people back to work quickly. And during that pandemic, we really had, the board had allocated about $32 million in CARES Act and ARPA funds to really go out to kind of stabilize, especially our small business community. Next slide. Related to, the pandemic, as I mentioned, our diversification, Prince William County has 8 targeted industries. These are industries that we have studied that match our infrastructure, matches our workforce. And so these industries were identified because we thought that we could find success in them. And so during the pandemic and post-pandemic, 3 of those targeted industries, data centers, distribution, and life sciences, were all in high demand. And so those industries really helped carry our economy forward. Next slide. Again, related back to the pandemic and the hybrid workforce, with people not wanting to commute downtown or Tyson's and so forth, is that we're seeing a lot of growth in the suburban markets right now. And so there's a lot of activity going on. And, so we're very lucky here in Prince William County because the suburbs are in. Now, if you go back to the mid 2014, it was just the opposite. Millennials had just kind of entered the workforce. The millennials had wanted to work in an urban environment. They didn't want to own a car. They didn't want to buy a house. They wanted to be free, I guess, free of any sort of restraints. And so you saw that's when DC was booming at that time because that's where the workforce was. And when you look at economic development, 30 years ago, when an employer was looking to where they wanted to put their manufacturing plant, they would look to, find the cheapest piece of land where they could get utilities. And they had a mentality, if I build it, the workers will come. And that has changed in the 2010s because corporations and companies realize that the workforce is their greatest asset. And so now when they look for a site or a new location, they are looking to see where that workforce is first. And then they kind of pick their targeted regions on areas that could potentially supply their workforce. Next slide. Startups thrive here. So when you think about, entrepreneurship, and especially in that high tech entrepreneurship, and these are companies that are generally characterized by, they're more likely to get funded by, venture capital or angel investments, and they generally have some sort of exit strategy. Either they're going to merge, or they might get bought out, or some other sort of exit strategy. And inside the Beltway, those entrepreneurships, those high-tech entrepreneurships, are characterized by I would say kind of more in that knowledge worker space. So they're focused on data analytics, engineering, AI, etc. So they're more in that kind of the softer side of development of new product. But here in Prince William County, our startups are more characterized by the fabricators, the makers, the doers. They're, actually making things. And so we have actually a very, it's a small but growing high-tech entrepreneurship community. And we have several facilities that help to incubate those efforts, one of which is on the east side, Brickyard co-working space. But then we have our Science Accelerator, and then the Virginia Serious Gaming Institute over at George Mason University. So we are a place for entrepreneurship as well. Next slide. Life sciences is a huge targeted industry for Prince William County. This actually started probably almost 30 years ago, 25, 35 years ago with Innovation Park, which is the county-owned industrial park. It's 1,500 acres. Back in the 90s, the county worked with the state to anchor the George Mason Sci-Tech campus, of which that primarily is in the engineering and life sciences sectors. And since then, the county has invested in a science accelerator. And then in 2021, we public-private partnership opened the Nova Bioscience Center. And so what you are seeing is this small but growing cluster of life sciences. They really it's challenging because it's a very competitive market with Maryland and where the NIH is, and there's a lot of life science companies, but down in Charlottesville and Roanoke with UVA and so forth. But we're continuing to grow this sector of businesses, and it's very exciting for Prince William County. Next slide. I couldn't talk about Prince William County if I didn't talk about our very attractive quality of life. Obviously, as we are still affordable compared to the rest of the DMV, and we still have, the top schools in the nation, amazing parks and open spaces and trails, and then we have the water, we have the mountains. It is very attractive for both people and companies to locate to Prince William County, because they can basically have it all and they don't have to pay as much money. And our goal in Prince William County is really to create more jobs, because what would make our quality of life better is that if no one had to commute outside of the county. Right now, if we look at our labor force, 2 out of 3 workers in our labor force actually leave this county every day. And we would love OmniRide to create more opportunities to bring more workers into Prince William County, creating more jobs here, so that people don't have to commute, because not spending your time in a car, I think adds immense amount to your overall quality of life. Next slide. Another difference that you'll notice in Prince William County compared to, say, like a Fairfax or like Tyson's Corner, is that we don't have a lot of Fortune 500 companies. What we do have are companies that have, really, it's your neighbor who started a business and has just grown and bootstrapped and grown their business over time. So 71 Tech, NCS Technologies, Planet Direct, these are all companies that were built locally, and a lot of them have global contracts and major contracts. And so what makes that really special and makes us, different, is that, that message is that we can tell, smaller businesses that are on the cusp of really growing, is that you can come here and you can be successful, because we know how to cultivate and provide kind of the operating environment for your company to be successful and grow. And then the last most important point of our 10 things, next slide, is that we have a motivated leadership, right? So overall, I think everybody understands the benefits of economic development, of increasing that commercial tax base, because at the end of the day, the more business that we can bring in, it creates very well-paying jobs for our citizens. It creates opportunities for our students in schools, for internships and apprenticeships. but it also lowers your taxes. And I guess it gives our policymakers the choices to either lower taxes or add additional needed services, such as the stuff that Seth was talking about in terms of some of those nonprofit partners that provide infrastructure to our communities that need extra assistance. And that is it for the 10 things. And so I will quiz everyone later to make sure you got all 10. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I've got a quick question, Christina. I don't remember exactly what the statistic was that you just mentioned in terms of the number of people in the county that are leaving for work, but we recently had to do an updated TDM plan for the state. And I first started at OmniRide in 2010. We had heard that it was between 75 and 80% of the folks were leaving, but we recently, through doing that TDM plan, and we had a consultant working with us, they had told us it had now gone down to 50%. Is that what you're finding as well, or with?
So we were, prior to the pandemic, we were 66%.
Okay.
I think we haven't, I think, gotten the data as kind of the market is still kind of settling out and people are figuring out, well, I should say employers are figuring out kind of the secret sauce of how much they let people, work remotely. But if you have that data, we would love to see that.
Yeah, I'll absolutely share it with you because we presented it to the board in July and it exists somewhere. I'll find it.
And it's exciting. It's exciting because I would love for us, like when you look at places like the city of Manassas, they import more of their workers than they export. Arlington imports most of their workers, at least prior to the pandemic. So if we could get into a situation where we're continuously decreasing that import versus export of workers, that's huge.
Yeah, agreed. I'll share too, and we have done some events at employers in the county. It seemed to me that a lot of the employers that would stop by, or employees rather, that would stop by and talk to us live 5 minutes from the office. So not everybody, of course, but a lot of them, which I think is great too. So, all right, well, I'm not going to hog all the time here. Do other folks have any questions for Seth or Christina? Feel free to unmute and ask.
Holly, this is Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
Good morning. Could you repeat what that most recent finding is, the percentage of folks leaving the county?
It was 50%.
So it's declined. Okay.
It's declined. Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification. And Seth, thank you for your contact information.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a question for Seth. Seth,
yes.
How does the nonprofits get, like the nonprofit that provides all the services, how is that funded?
Yeah, so oftentimes they apply for grants, but then we also just consider providing money within the budget for the services that they need to get done. But usually grant funding that they're able to apply to at the local, state, or federal level.
So Wellington still is the property manager, but then you bring in somebody to offer all those other services?
So it'll usually be like a 90-10 split where we're 90% owner, there'll be 10% owner, and then part of them being the owner is helping to deliver those services.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sias, I think you had a question.
Yes, my question is to Christine. So you talked about the 8 identified industries. So are they based on the competitive advantage the county has, or based off of what the county wanted to attract in terms of being an engines of economic growth?
So it's been it's based on our competitive advantages, our infrastructure, our workforce, our assets. We identified the initial targeted industries were identified in the 1990s, and then every so many years we hire a consultant to review those industries and kind of hone in on, do these make sense? So the most recent one that we did was in 2018. And in that case, the consultant actually kind of drilled down. So like we have things like, we always had distribution as a targeted industry, but they then kind of drilled down and identified in that distribution where Prince William County would be successful. So you're not going to see like the 500,000 or 1 million square foot like distribution centers that you see, say, on the I-81 corridor or down there in Stafford. You know, our sweet spot is generally 250,000 square feet or less, that have generally an e-commerce component to it. And then what we're really trying to do is go after those distributions companies that have the robotics inside their facility, because that, with all that equipment gets taxed and it generates a lot more tax revenue for Prince William County. So it drilled down in all of our targeted industries to really help us hone in on those areas that would be that match Prince William County, but are also good areas for us to focus on.
Thank you.
Mhm.
This is hi, this is Phil Perella. I'm the CFO here at OmniRide. This is all really interesting discussion. Thank you very much for presenting. You know, one thing I want to mention is in our recent budgets, one of the things that we've been making a priority is you know, Prince William County in particular is our largest local funding partner. And one of the things we've been trying to do is take the money that Prince William County puts into our budget that brings people into DC or the Pentagon or wherever the case may be, and try to reconfigure that and use that funding for local services. And so in our most recent budgets, we've been able to take inefficient money being used to bring people into DC and add, you know, what we have upcoming soon, you know, dedicated paratransit service on the east side of the county, which is a game changer in mobility for some of the people that, you know, Seth in particular was maybe referencing. And also the microtransit zones is new, but, you know, also trying to increase frequencies on some of our routes. It's really interesting to see the economic development here. I've just moved here less than 2 years ago from upstate New York, and the area is clearly was, you know, so much is built with no intention to have transit, and you can clearly see there's just and it's going to be a major problem in the coming years with the growth. And that you know, that conversion you were discussing from bedroom community to say something else, it's going to be a problem. I mean, you can't really take a line bus to your job without, you know, unsafe walks lots of the time, unsafe waiting areas lots of the time. And truthfully, if we want to have that economic activity within the county, you're going to need those sorts of things. And it's going to be very interesting because this county, you know, while they do contribute, I think that OmniRide has evolved from sort of a funding pass-through agency to an operating agency now. We're providing services, but I don't think the funding is nowhere near where it needs to be in order to really make, you know, the dent in this community that we would need to need to make with things like service frequency, for example. You know, having to wait an hour for a bus, you know, is going to be problematic during peak times if you're trying to gain traction with your public transportation service, but that's what we can afford. And so, you know, these discussions with the business community, it's very intriguing to me because I think that we really need each other probably a lot more than we recognize sometimes. And just the development in this county has also been interesting to see as a newcomer and the changeover from that bedroom community. But, you know, I think for OmniRide's part, we're doing the things we can to take, you know, unproductive money that leaves the county and bring it back in, you know, bring it back in with services in the county. But I think that's only going to go so far. And as, you know, work in the county continues to emerge, it will be just interesting to see how that takes place. And, you know, how many times does a developer call us prior to developing and say, how do we integrate transportation and what's going on here?
Yeah.
I would venture to guess it's very minimal, if ever, happening. And that's a hard change to make. You know, that's our responsibility to enhance our brand and our footprint within the community, so that way people know who we are and understand that they should call us first, and we can actually help provide solutions. And so, you know, some of these things, I think that we could be of great help to the development in this county, but I do think that, you know, the long and short of where I'm going is I do think we need to see that table when things are in the process of happening, and we can provide much less expensive solutions to some of the issues that may take place over time. So I just wanted to mention that, mostly about the investment piece, that we recognize the change in the community as well in terms of working in here. We know that it's a desire for the county to have people employed and staying here, and we appreciate that as well, and are certainly trying to do what we can within our means to adjust what we provide to service the county with the dollars that the county provides, you know, more so than the past. So just wanted to mention that. Thank you very much again. Great presentations.
So what I'm hearing you, Phil, is when we have a prospect, I need to call you first.
Well, I that's not, listen, I think it's our responsibility. Yes, the answer is yes. The short answer is yes. But I think it's our responsibility to be seen as a viable partner, to participate in that. I think that's stuff that we need to do as well. And I think that we're working on that. But we don't want you to have to think real hard or have to go down a 50-point checklist. We want it to be on the tip of your tongue, right? And that's our job, I think, to put ourselves in a position to do that. But we may have no role in something you're doing, but we also may be able to help you solve a problem or address an issue that maybe you weren't thinking of before. And it works both ways, right? Prince William County in some ways needs to require that developers do that before they start allowing things to happen. So it's also Prince William County's responsibility for this stuff as well, to say, hey, have you spoken to the people in transportation to see if there is a way that they can alleviate some of the congestion issues that might be created by whatever it is that's going on? And, you know, very high level, but you understand where I'm going with this. And sometimes we might be like, yeah, we can't help here. We have nothing for you. We step aside. But I do think as things change in this county that, you know, we'll probably, if we can position ourselves well enough, we should be called more often than not, I guess is what I'm saying. But yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm going to interject there and just tell a happy story, because you're right, Phil, we don't get called too often, but it doesn't never happen. I want to say about 2 years ago, Russ Gestel, who works for a relatively large developer who has a lot of projects going on in Prince William County, did reach out to me after hearing me speak on a chamber call. And he has a big project going on, and my brain, I guess, is fried this morning, but I do know it's in Victor's district.
It's
Which
the
district?
courts
Exactly,
district.
courts. And he reached out to us about that in advance. We had a number of conversations with him, and he included a lot of the things we talked about in his application process and continues to work with us on that. And then he has another project he's working on out on 66 in that shopping center that has a big movie theater whose life is very short. And we've been talking to him about that too, and about some things we can do with transit. And you know, he's smart because what he's adding there in terms of information that he's getting from us augments his application in a good way. He's seen in a good light when he can say, I have talked to folks at OmniRide and we have integrated transportation into this. Sharing that just because I feel like it hasn't
It is
never
great
happened.
when that happens, Holly, and
right,
that's exactly the type of thing. You know, we might not be a full participant, and we might be an area here or there, one of their developments, but the ongoing dialogue and being viewed as part of the economic development, I think, is the long term. You know, is the goal for us, is what we're looking to bring to the table. Because I do think that we can contribute to that. But there's gonna be times we can't. It's gonna be, hey, go do your thing. You know, thank you for asking us. Thank you for talking to us. We, you know, maybe don't have a partnership here, but you know, call us the next time you're doing something, and perhaps there is.
Yep. Agreed. And I know, Michelle, you put something into the chat, and I'm sorry, I saw it flash up on my screen, but I cannot see the chat for whatever reason at the moment.
No worries
can
at all.
you-
Thank
yeah.
you for the opportunity just to ask my question. Is there a possibility? I know that micro transit services are available. I don't understand the parameters exactly, but is there a possibility of expanding micro transit services in partnership with healthcare for non-emergent services?
And I don't know if Joe is still on the call.
I can hop
think
on with
he
that.
had-
I
Okay.
can give you, so what I would say is that we are open to having a discussion on anything. And I truly mean that. Where I think right now, microtransit is being viewed as there's sort of a progression in transportation options, right? Where you need to grow to a point to get certain resources. So for example, Holly can touch on this, as well, I'm sure, but, maybe there's a van pool. And then that gains a lot of traction, and hey, maybe now we need to go to a micro transit zone because that's gained more traction. Maybe the traction has gotten to the point where we actually need full line buses out there running fixed route because it's grown to that degree. So from our perspective, we want to look at the demand and attach sort of the resource to that demand. So we're trying to view it as, hey, there's this bus that's running. It's a 40-foot bus. It takes a lot of diesel fuel, and there's not a lot of people on it. However, there are some people who 100% Lifeline desperately need those services. What if we get rid of this very expensive mode and put a less expensive, more flexible, nimble, dynamic type of service out there that could meet their needs on the more part-time basis, if you will? So we're evaluating microtransit in a lot of ways as, hey, can we switch out here? Is this not productive? Can we replace it with something else? That said, the other scenario where we look for microtransit is where we have nothing, where there are no options. It's an excellent opportunity to start. So I'm not exactly sure the project or what you're referring to in general, but I would say that we will always want to have those discussions and find the way to partner where we can find a way to partner, more so than not. So I don't know what it would take. I don't know details, obviously, in this particular case, but 100% worth the discussion. And I think the folks like Holly and Joe would certainly want to have those.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, one of our primary objectives is really around access to healthcare for individuals who don't otherwise have access, and particularly those individuals who might be undergoing, a course of treatment that would preclude public transportation for a variety of reasons, whether it's access or their particular diagnosis and health status, or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I think some future discussions, and I would love to engage in that.
Great. And if I could just add one piece too, with the upcoming dedicated paratransit service that we'll be having, some folks perhaps might be eligible for that service based on the Americans with Disabilities Act. And so if they are eligible and they're able to get those services, then they really can get, I apologize if I get it wrong, it's either door to door or curb to curbside service through paratransit. But depending on where they live and whatnot, that might be an option for them on demand. It's basically like an Uber Lyft style service for folks who are who are eligible under ADA, and typically that ends up being folks with disabilities or seniors or things of that regard. So if someone has, as you discussed, an ongoing course of treatments, perhaps there is some eligibility within there. There's even things like conditional eligibility, where somebody could be eligible for a period of time because they're undergoing something like this. And it might only be, hey, you got this period of time where you have a more severe circumstance or there's an issue here, you're eligible for this period of time, and then we'll revisit it when things clear up and you go to your doctor, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe we then encourage you to go on a regular bus at that point. But there are those types of options. So what I would ask, and I think anybody on our side would ask, would be certainly to sort of lay out some of the characteristics, bullet points of what you're looking and talking about. And then we can certainly do a quick amount of research on our end, and then have a fruitful discussion at that point about what may come from it.
Wonderful. Holly, perhaps you and I could follow up.
Absolutely. Sounds like a
Thank
plan. All right, we've got a few more minutes for any final questions, or I'm going to give people 5 minutes back to their Tuesday morning, which is never bad. I'm going to give it 2 beats. All right. Hearing no further questions, I'm going to thank our panelists again this morning, or our speakers. Seth and Christina, thank you so much. This has been a great discussion, and thanks so much for the rest of you for joining. I know it's almost Christmas, so that was really awesome of you all to turn out. And with that, I'll wish you all a very happy holidays, and I look forward to seeing you all in the new year.
Thanks, Holly.
All right,
Thanks,
take
everybody.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.